Okay. So, guys, thank you. I'm gonna be advancing into the activities. Miranda, let me allow Miranda's access. There it is. So, guys, if you're willing to share something regarding or about Semana Tech, what you did on Semana Tech, feel free to open your microphone. Feel free to just add any comments on the chat if it's more comfortable for you guys. For me, it's important to know, like in a broader or general sense, what did you guys do on your second Semana Tech? I don't know how you feel in terms of energy regarding the semester's advance, in terms of how you've been performing, sorry, with your other courses. I'm gonna assume that by now you might be feeling a little bit tired or willing to be entering into the ending sections, which is pretty natural because we've been working quite hard so far. So if you guys, any of you are willing to share something about Semana Tech, we can take this space. You can type it. You can open your microphone. And I'm gonna be advancing also into today's slides. You have these slides on Canvas through or via the announcement sections. This is week 13 by now. Remember, we're into the module 3, and the first topic has to do. Interesting enough, it's the first topic that has to do with stuff related to working environments. The prior topics were related strongly to general or cultural environments, and also they had a lot of theoretical information. So this is where we enter into a more fixed position regarding how we interpret interculturalism or the different modes of interculturality, leadership, etc. Both more specifically into the working environments, and that's why our guest speaker for today's session, I think it's the perfect fit for today's topic or today's lecture. So I'm gonna keep on advancing. Our guest it's going to be coming around 1 hour by now. She's supposed to be joining us at 2:15 because she had prior activities. I think it's better if we start the session with our guest speaker and then we see some things related to topics. But in this case, I couldn't do it. It's totally okay because it's gonna be just like in the first hour. Okay, thank you, Anna. I'm reading the comments. Okay, so Ana Gutierrez is saying, okay, I'm going to read the prior comment that says, I invite you guys to visit Expotech. There are many dynamics, activities, and food. Also, at night there will be concerts. So, Anna, thank you for sharing with us that you have your stand. You can take really cool pictures in Asian theme photo stage. Okay, so that's great. In any case, guys, if you don't know what Expotech is, I'm gonna let me switch. I'm gonna stop sharing and I'm gonna move to my web browser, so you can see the web page, and then you can get information around the web page. So Expotech, what's Expotech? As you can see on the screen, is like a cultural activity party or a cultural themed activities. It started yesterday and it ends on November 3rd around midnight. It usually takes the whole night for that. There's different cultural diverse activities so that you can be doing on the Expotech. It's happening on the Estadio Norte. You just have to cross the street through the exit where if you were going to Wellness Center, you cross the street and then you have the Expotech. And this event has happened for more than 40 years by now. It started in 1980. So it's a great opportunity for you as an alumni to be joining diverse cultural activities. So thank you, Anna, for the recommendation. And I also have to recommend that because at least I have a lot of peers and students also, alumni that are doing or having activities at Excotec. So guys, take some time. You have a nice weather now, so you can go there. So don't miss the chance and this opportunity. Okay, guys, let me stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna go back to the presentation. If you have any doubts, comments, etc., feel free to interrupt me, to open your microphone, to type something on the chat. I will be quite attentive to that space. So I was on this week's agenda. We're gonna be seeing some general facts and news. I don't know if you happen to review in a common fashion the news, like what's happening around the world, the geopolitical activities or events that has happened. I think even in the last 3 to 4 days are shaping in a really interesting way, and I'm saying interesting with emphasis on a dangerous, on critical. Yes, Adam, go ahead.
I have a new, the one of Acapulco, of the hurricane.
Oh, okay, yes. Are you willing to share information with us about that?
Well, it's supposed that they have not like knowledge of the hurricane, but then the news got like that, like, can you say in Spanish? Sure.
Sorry, say it again. I didn't get the last part.
Can I say it in Spanish?
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Ok. Se supone que no tenían conocimiento, pero luego sacaron noticias como que sí lo habían avisado, solo que el gobierno como que no lo difundió. Entonces el huracán, al parecer, que inició como una tormenta, en menos de, creo que 4 horas ya era un huracán de categoría 5. Entonces destruyó Acapulco, pero lo que nos impacta es que es como tipo, es una de las primeras ciudades en ser destruidas con más de 1 millón de habitantes. Entonces recibieron bastantes daños y alrededor de México se están haciendo colectas o cosas así para apoyar.
Yeah, so the issue regarding the Hurricane Otis has different perspectives in a broader sense. And prior to this hurricane, by now we know that we are into the hurricane season on both coasts of the country. When this administration began its operation, what I mean by that is that when this president's administration began, they took a federal fondo. I forgot the word to that. So he took the emergency relief money for this sort of events. So when a natural disaster has happened, such as this Hurricane Otis, it turns out to be really difficult for us to address that situation. And on one hand, as you Ada said, yes, the news and the facts that the official sources were managing were a little bit different or delayed to what factual information from press and from different stakeholders were released prior to the hurricane, the storm turning into a hurricane and the hurricane hitting the coast in those municipalities, specifically in Guerrero, in the municipality of Acapulco. On the other hand, one thing that wasn't favorable at all is that it was a storm in the category or in this systems category. A storm is quite inoffensive when being compared to a hurricane, but in a lapse of 2 to 3 hours, it turned out to be really huge, really aggressive. I don't know today's count about the damages, but at least for the last 2 to 3 days, the deceased people that hurricane cost, it was around 43 people. I don't know if the number has gone up, But in the first days, the government were telling the different agencies of the government, they were telling that there were only 1 or 2 deceased people. We know now that there are more than 40. I think the number might rise in the next days. But yes, that's one of the news that has quite relevant into the general public agenda. Thank you so much, Ada, for mentioning. And thank you so much because I didn't have that in this slide. In here I have like general information regarding it's sort of a mixture of news. Some of those events are quite interesting to address, and by interesting, remember that I mean we have to worry about some of the things that's been going on in the general geopolitical arena. For example, I don't know if you heard or read or know about the Israel-Hamas armed conflict. We know the general information about it because we have spoken about this in prior sessions, but during the last week or the last days, Lebanon, which is like the neighbor to Palestine and Israel. So I say the Iran, I think so. So I meant Israel. So Lebanon, it's like they got into an alert mode because they're the next door neighbor to those countries. And the thing is that Lebanon, inside the country, it has a huge armed group which can threaten a lot of the security around the area. Also, thankfully, it's a little bit further from that area, but Yemen, as I say in the last paragraph, Yemen has also incorporated into the sort of war against Israel. Like they're not joining their initiative, so that's like strong forces coming from different natures, having influence into the conflict, which they never. Historically, they never tend to be good news because when countries start to activate their like alert mode, usually the consequences are not like favorable for any of the parties. Also, interesting enough, the United States, South Korea, North Korea, they've been quite active. China also they've been quite active into general speeches and general negotiations and international postures regarding the conflict. So that might be one of a channel that can go into the solution aspect of the participation of those different parties, but not just by participating. It's gonna happen a general solution. Remember, guys, all of this geopolitical information, this news, they are quite relevant for us because what we try to study here, or what we try to learn by these topics and examples and exercises, etc., is how, in real terms, leadership is being addressed. And in this case, we see, for example, in the theoretical side, we see now that when we understand different cultures and we address different people recognizing their values as they are, in general terms, they can be addressed in a more proper way. But on one hand, on the other hand, we see that in reality, countries, they have a huge ego, they have a huge monetary interests because these activities, they tend to be quite profitable for some countries, for some countries more than others. So in general terms, what I'm trying to say is that not always what we see in the theoretical part corresponds to the reality. And in this case, in a sad or in a bad way, I think in a broader sense about interculturality, about leadership, it's not working really into the constructive sense of what it's meant to be. Also, remember that we have different armed conflicts around the world. One of the other really huge important armed conflicts is the one around Russia, Ukraine, all the NATO countries that are involved into the distinct negotiations. China is also into that public dialogue. It's supposed to be a meeting coming soon between Biden and between Xi, which is the prime minister, the leader of China. That hasn't happened like in a good fashion in the last terms, in the last administration. So if China and the United States can sit on a table and come with at least with a positive discourse, it's going to be really good for the general geopolitical arena. And as you can see, guys, in general, this news, it's a list of 10 general news. They have to do mostly with these armed conflicts. I also incorporated that Spain has taken the word of the Princess Leonor that she's going to become the next queen of the country. That's not a sort of, in general terms, not a negative news, but everything it's about or strongly related to that. So thank you, Ana, for incorporating the local news. I didn't have the scope in this case for that. I also incorporate the sources where I get these weekly facts. I tend to speak to the same sources: Associated Press, Reuters, The Week, and Politico, so that you can, guys, go and look for additional information, because especially The Week has like a section that sums what's going on, and then you can read in 2 to 3 minutes. So that's really good information. In this slide, I'm sharing with you one of the many maps that speak about armed conflicts around the world. This map is quite easy to read and to understand, because it doesn't have plenty of information. For example, here you can see that Mexico, supposedly we don't have any armed conflicts, according to this source, that it's the live UA map. Let me stop sharing. I'm going to go back to my web browser so you can see another examples, another maps, because they are more interesting than this one. Okay, I think that you can see this other map, this different map that is from the Council on Foreign Relations. This Council on Foreign Relations help us visualize diverse armed conflicts around the world. But in this case, this map that is called Global Conflict Tracker, in this specific case, the Council for Foreign Relations report only conflicts that are relevant to the United States. For example, if I click here on Mexico, let me do a zoom. So let's see what does it says. It's not popping any information, but it should say that I read that information prior to the session, and it says that in Mexico, well, we have like the narco traffic issues, and that's why they are putting Mexico into that. Into their map. Also, we have armed conflicts in Haiti, of course, in Venezuela, due to the global crisis that they're suffering as a country, their economic nature of it, and of course, in this relevant area that we're speaking about regarding Lebanon, Israel, the Palestinian territories. Also, Syria and Iraq, they have armed conflicts. Yemen, Yemen is at the bottom of our screen. These guys are also incorporating into the war per discourse, which is not really good at all, as I said before. So, in general terms, we can be sensitive regarding all these activities. I know that they seem to be quite far from our current reality, our current situation, and even the local situation, they tend to be in some ways seem as far from our reality. But if we get to be sensitive regarding this information, sorry, we're gonna get into a more broader aspect, or a better aspect into what's going on around the world. For example, I went back into this map, the Life UA map. We have a really interesting situation going around China, and regarding North Korea, but this map doesn't show that China is getting bigger into their nuclear arsenal, which probably is violating some international conventions and treaties. So what I'm trying to say with this is that there's not a single source of conflict in this case. Okay, there's China's nuclear arsenal. It's not a conflict per se, but can become or has the potential to become something worse than it is. Okay, so getting hands-on with our module 3 via the topic 3.1 that is called Intercultural Skills in the Workplace. What we are going to be seeing right now is something quite different to the news that we went through. And in this case, we have to be taking all the information we have by now regarding, in general terms, about interculturality, about leadership, and we can be focusing on some aspects related to the working environments, the different or diverse workplaces. The topic addresses two different natures to these intercultural skills in the workplaces, and I think it's a good way to address them because it reflects the nature or the needs that we have nowadays. It's showing that in today's working environments, I'm putting in the slide like presentially or in the absence of it, because the online working places, they, as you know, guys, as we're doing right now, they have become a common part of our general activities. In some cases, a lot of people around the world, not just in Mexico, not just here in Monterrey, we are working through or via or with the support of online activities, but it's a common activity around the world because the technologies have developed in order for us to have like low-cost meetings, like affordable technologies. If you go to buy a cheap laptop, like around 6,000 pesos, you can have like all the access to the different tools and technologies. Most of them are free to use, so that's a good thing for the general environment in terms of access to technologies. And in this case, what we're interested about this topic is that how we have to develop these intercultural skills because they have become something vital for us to succeed into the on-site or the online diverse working places. So these skills encompass the ability to understand, to appreciate, and so we can go effectively into different cultures. It's highly probable that you guys, if not by now, maybe in the short term, you're going to be working with people from diverse cultures, diverse countries, diverse ideologies. So it's really, really important and for us to be addressing these diverse methods of addressing these issues. So in the case of this topic, the topic 3.1 and some of the topics we saw in the prior sessions, we're going to be fundamentally speaking about information that comes from the World Council on Intercultural and Global Competence and the Center for Cultural Intelligence. So these two places, they if we see it like in a general term, on a general sense, sorry, there are two places that constantly they keep on updating information regarding how we should be working around these different places. So also we have a lot of authors, academic authors that support this information. You can go look for the references at Canvas under topics, diverse topics. well, it's nothing out of box right now. Let me move the controls so I can see the slide. Okay, yeah. So, as I said before, and according to the examples of the news and according to the world activities, the geopolitical agendas, global leaders, they actually have a huge impact and a huge role into the diversity of the activities and into the general development of current events in and out of the workplaces. What do I mean by that? Is that leadership, it's a huge part and a huge component into the development of these skills. In the last part of the session, today's lecture, if we have the time, I'm going to ask you guys to help me with a brief exercise regarding some information that you have around these topics. But let us go through really quick into into what it says about this one. Yes, about the online or sorry, the on-site and the online working places. So regarding the on-site work, in Spanish it has to be like trabajo en el sitio, trabajo en el lugar, una locación física, on-site work. We have to address three different things: cultural awareness, effective communication, and team building. Also, this does not exclude the online activities. For example, sorry, for the cultural awareness and sensitivity, not only global leaders, but general stakeholders, general participants of the diverse workplaces, they have to be quite sensitive into this. I don't know if you guys remember specifically about what Sarah and Daniel said. There are past guest speakers. According how they manage their sense of humor, their relation with their peers at work, and they have to be adjusting that information because they cannot perform themselves as we do with our close friends, with our known people. Even if we go here in Mexico, these cultural differences from regions or from states, if we don't address them properly, they might cause some general differences. For example, it is quite common that in the northern part of the country, like the northern states, in general, I'm doing like a generalization here, people tend to behave a little bit more into an easygoing fashion. For example, in the center part of the country, in the Bajío region, people tend to be a little bit more quiet or reserved. I mean, sometimes that impacts different cultural aspects. For example, in Bajío, yeah, I do know that it's a generalization, but it's harder for you to get like someone respond to you if you say hello, good afternoon, good night, good morning. Due to these cultural differences, it's not regarding any of thing. So we have to address and take into consideration these sort of examples. And the thing is that we don't have a map, we don't have a route, so that we can address these issues into a straightforward way, because it's not a written or a fixed location into the general map of intercultural relations. So, because we don't know how to perform well into these diverse activities or diverse scenarios, we have to learn by doing it. And learning by doing it, it's quite a good activity if we have like precise considerations into the learning process, but it's not an easy task in general. What I'm trying to say, in the cultural awareness, for example, stakeholders can invite employees to share their unique cultural backgrounds, tradition, values during team meetings, and also into the informal spaces around the workplaces. Here in Mexico, we have a strong informal culture into the workplaces. We tend to be quite social. We tend to be quite expressive about our personal lives into the workplaces. In some ways, it can handle us some advantages. In some cases, it can limit us to what we can say or do into the workplace. But in general, it is well received when we share a little bit more about ourselves. So our peers, our leaders, our bosses, our employers, or our employees can be a little bit more expressive about what they are, who they are, sorry, and what they need or expect into the dynamics of any workplace. The second point, effective communication. I think I have made a lot of emphasis regarding communication, not only because I am an expert in that area, and I can speak with more confidence about communication rather than any other areas in general, but we know by now that in general terms, the difficulties or the problems that arise in an organization, in any given organization, is highly related to ineffective communication. Because sometimes we don't know how to speak, how to communicate properly, how to move from the ideas that I have in my mind into translating those ideas so it can be properly delivered via, for example, this lecture via Zoom or via an email or via text messages, etc. So communication in general, and in particular, effective communication, has to be really, really addressed in a proper way. So, guys, as an advice, do not take for granted what communication means to all of us. Communication means different things for all of us, and it's better to ask twice than to assume things in a general way. Maybe you as youngsters, when you were in elementary school, in high school, maybe your professors repeated constantly that you have to be asking or keep on asking until you get the information quite straight and quite clear. And I think that's a really good way onto going into the effective communication area, because it's better to reaffirm, to reassure, to be 100% sure that what the other party is saying or doing is what I'm interpreting as correct, right? So the effective communication is also a key aspect into the intercultural environments, into the intercultural spaces. Effective dialogue, active listening, and having empathy for others. It's really important. So regarding this aspect, for example, active listening and effective dialogue, it seems that they are a daily based activity, both of them. But in fact, for example, active listening is an activity that we have to learn how to do it. We're not born with that skill. We have to develop that skill, and we all, in general, we all can listen and understand general information into the workplaces scenarios, diverse scenarios, but active listening it's a really fundamental part into this way. When we move into the online category, we can see that thankfully or luckily for us, we have a lot of resources that can help us retrieve information and communicate information in a proper way. What do we have by now? It was really different the way we communicated 50 or 100 or 200 years ago, and we now have developed a different set of resources, different set of tools that can help us relate or communicate into a more proper sense. Okay, so what I said about the team building and relationship building, it has to do with that. We have to incorporate different needs, perspectives, feelings. That's also important in 2023 to incorporate perspectives about the different parties. It was quite common um, for this kind of elements or activities to be discarded into the workplaces because we assumed that the working culture had to do with going into a place to do our daily tasks or daily activities, and that's it. And we go home, and that our job was quite different from our personal or leisure time. We know now that it's better if we address it as something intertwined, because a lot of times what we do in the workplace tends to affect how we behave or feel about in our other different spaces, such as personal spaces or relaxation spaces or leisure spaces, distractions, etc. So we know now that team building and relationship building is quite relevant when we are focusing on this kind of activities. And remember, guys, when we speak about on-site and online workplaces, they don't discard each other. They are not different. In reality, it's more like intertwining of both of them, and usually, especially in hybrid spaces such as we have. For example, we're taking this lecture in a remote session. Next week, we're going to be seeing us at the classroom. Next week, we are going to be seeing us also in the classroom, etc. And we have to adjust into those different paces because not all people can work all the time into an online environment. Not all people can choose to work all the time into on-site workplaces. And also, it's really important to address that people tend to behave differently and perform differently according to the spaces. For example, here in Zoom, it's it's less probable that we have interactions because of the dynamics of the platform, because of the dynamics of the virtuality. That's the way it is composed. It can be different, of course, but in general terms, when you have online classes or online meetings, usually there's one people speaking or addressing the group of or the rest of participants. So that we can and we have to take into consideration this kind of information, right? Guys, if you have any doubts, comments, because I'm just seeing my shared screen right now. I'm not seeing the chat. Feel free to open the microphone to type into the chat. I'm gonna get like an audible notification so I can be aware of that. Okay. So in terms of remote work, online work, online workplaces, we have to address and to understand that virtuality comes with a different and totally different set of skills, of methods, of way that we address different aspects of communication and work in general. In the presentation, it says, let me move my window, virtual cultural awareness. Okay. So what can we say about virtuality? What can we say about this cultural awareness into the virtual spaces? I know that it may sound like a little bit weird, a little bit like out of the focus, out of the scope, but it has definitely and totally to do with the diverse workplaces. Because it's gonna be more common for you guys, for your generation, for the next generation, to be performing activities into these virtual spaces, into the online spaces. Let me put just a specific example. Right now, I have a colleague. He's a professor that works with industrial engineering guys, and he specializes into security topics in the workplace. He's an industrial engineer. He specializes into security, so that safe spaces and safe regulation and safe practices can be built around those activities. He used to work quite heavily for FEMSA. I think you know FEMSA by now because we are a little bit part of that group. FEMSA is a huge conglomerate here in Mexico that controls diverse brands about a lot of things. It manages brands like, for example, the soccer team, the OXXO brand, the Coca-Cola brand, the Arca Continental, which is the one who produces Coca-Cola brands here in Mexico, and a lot of different brands. So what I'm trying to say is I'm going to go back with the example. He used to work with FEMSA developing training and courses, cursos de capacitación. And he used to have a lot of work with them because he had to be implementing training courses basically all around Mexico. And around 5 to 6 years, FEMSA decided to turn those activities into just a digital space so that people can train themselves into online repositories and online spaces. Of course, this guy, my colleague, my friend, he ran out of business with FEMSA because he stopped developing like on-site courses, and right now he focuses on developing just online courses for FEMSA and some other clients. What I'm trying to say with this is that the online modality, the online working sets, it's not only just changing the way we address ourselves between these platforms such as Zoom, such as Google Meet, such as Microsoft Teams, etc. But they also come with different practices. And we have to know that these different practices cannot be substituted by the on-site processes, and they cannot be replaced. So they're specific to these working environments. So it's good for us to know that this comes with a whole different set of rules. One of those set of rules has to do with this virtual cultural awareness. As I said before, the technological communication platforms, we have a lot of different tools by now. I don't know if you guys have the license for the artificial intelligence at Zoom. They have incorporated some functionalities recently, so that you have like artificial intelligence here at Zoom as a sort of personal assistant. It can do, for example, it can do a briefing about what we spoke in this meeting. It can do a transcription. It can do like elaborate questions about the topics we've seen. So what I'm trying to say is that these technological platforms and diverse technological resources, they come really handy when addressing online communication and addressing online working spaces. It is highly probable that you guys tend to work mainly through online channels. I've seen you working in the classroom, like, for example, if you have to deliver any written text, you share a document through the cloud, through any given platform. I see that you like to use a lot of the Google Cloud services. And those sort of technological communication tools, they help us to have some leverage, some balance between our skills as human and physical beings into the online arena or the virtuality. I tend to work a lot of stuff related the virtuality things such as social networks and platforms, etc. So I think it's going to be evolving in a quite interesting way in the next 5 to 10 years. So we have to be really aware into what's going on with these activities. I'm sorry. Regarding the building trust and connection, well, it has to do with how we choose or how we decide to relate with each other into these different spaces. We have to be constantly fostering trust and connections between ourselves because if you can see, for example, in today's session, we have like this barrier between us that separates us from being like in a more comfortable way into a more one-to-one position, and it's due to the platform or to the platform configuration. So we have to foster a positive communication and build trust. One of the main issues about the digital spaces and the virtuality is that we do not necessarily know who's behind the camera, who's behind the other side of the connection, right? I think by now, I hope you haven't got into any trouble, into trouble regarding online identities or online frauds or online schemes, fraudulent schemes. But it's highly common that in a daily basis, people get put into different difficult positions because sometimes they tend to believe information, or they tend to believe people that have a hidden interest, a hidden agenda. So we have to know how to be aware of that. I say a lot in my other courses, because my other courses also has to do with digital communication, digital spaces, etc. And I like to address this issue as the way I'm going to show it to you guys. We have evolved into the last 300,000 years. We have our last like physiological evolution. We have become more capable into processing information, into developing tools and technologies that in prior decades or prior centuries we couldn't do because we didn't know how to. What I'm trying to say is that we are highly complex individuals. We are highly complex species. We sent distinct artifacts, explorers to Mars. We have a lot of satellites going around our planet Earth. But we still get scared when a thunderstorm or a thunder arises without us being aware. We tend to believe in fake news, for example. We don't have the capacity or the ability, in general terms, to discern between like a formal or trusted source, between an explicit fake news, for example. And what I'm trying to say is that even though that we tend to perceive ourselves as highly skilled or as highly competent, in the reality is that we're not so different from our ancestors from 5,000 years ago, for example. So good things about the virtual spaces, as we spoke, but it also comes with a cost. And the cost is that we don't usually tend to know how to identify the good things from the bad ones. In general terms, we do, but sometimes we might fall into phishing, into fraudulent scams, into fake identities, into fake news, etc. So the good news about that is that we can learn to do that. We as a species like to fool other people. It's a common issue all across our history. We like to take people's money without the consent. We like to fool or go around into these activities because it's like part of the way we like to do things. That doesn't mean that they're correct, but it's a way that we as a species, not as individuals, of course, but as a species, we like to do things. Well, that's just a perspective. Of course, you can have your own perspective, and of course that can be different, and it's going to be correct also. But what I'm trying to say is that even though we have gone through a lot of advances, we still behave the same way we behaved like 2,000, 4,000, 8,000 years ago. So it's becoming more and more important for us to learn how to develop in these virtual spaces, into these virtual communities. For example, you as a generation, like go around. For example, you guys as having like a median age of 20, maybe 21 years old, like the standard of the group. Um, so you were probably well aware of internet as a technology since you were youngsters. So even though you know the technology since you were like really young, we also have to develop what you and I and all of the users of the online spaces. We have to develop particular skills for us to go through and have successful activities, to perform well, to have not to be fooled in general terms, and outperform what we're supposed to be doing. And of course, the online spaces, they come for us as an add-on. I mean, like it's if we see it as a tool or as an addition, we have to be using online spaces to create synergy with the on-site or the physical spaces, right? Last but not least, about the cultural intelligence development, not only the leaders, but the general stakeholders, all the participants, they have to develop cultural intelligence. I don't know if you remember, guys, that we did an exercise about cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence is a scale, the way we can measure how much we know about other cultures and how much we know regarding the interactions with other cultures. On one hand. On the other hand, the cultural intelligence, the CQ, comes as an alternative or as a different way of measuring our diverse set of intelligences. As you might know by now, we don't, sorry, we do not only measure our intelligence because we get an excellent grade in an exam. We know by now that we have at least around 8 to 10 different ways to measure intelligence. We can measure it because or through diverse methods. We know now that we have, for example, spatial intelligence, musical intelligence, kinesthetic intelligence, academic intelligence, social intelligence, mathematical intelligence, and so on. There are a set of 8 to 10 different intelligences that we know how to measure by now. And it's highly probable that when we go onto advancing more in the research fields, diverse research fields, we find more ways to incorporate diverse measurement according to these intelligences. One of them, of course, is the cultural intelligence, and it has to be also fostered and developed not only by the leaders, but by all the members of the diverse workspaces. So it is highly recommended or that we can encourage to engage in self-reflections. For example, here in the tech system, we tend to do a lot of reflections, a lot of like cultural comparisons, like a lot of activities regarding sensitivity according to the human aspects of our activities. What I'm trying to say is that even though that you might be studying industrial engineering, industrial design, communication, finance, etc., we are in the system, we tend to incorporate a lot of information regarding how to understand others as human beings. So we can perceive the value of others as human beings. And that's a really huge differentiator between like the good performers from the excellent performers. And it's gonna come really helpful for you guys to address those issues. This is like the greatest space to do that prior for you to be going into the working environment in a full time. By now you are like, let me allow our guest speaker. By now you are like 100% of your time studying or 50-50 studying and working. I don't know, but it has to do with that. So if we incorporate intercultural skills into the workplace, both online and on-site or physical and remote spaces, we should be capable to create an ideal environment for all the participants. Cultural awareness, effective communication, team building, and the promotion in general of diverse cultures and diverse interculturalities, as we've seen so far, can foster inclusion, collaboration, productivity, etc. So that's the main aspects of these topics. Let me just move forward. Hi, Maricarmen. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good afternoon. Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, just give me just 1 second so I can go with your introduction.
Of course.
Okay, guys. So I have this information as usual in the slides. We don't know how. Sorry, we don't have to go them like specifically into them. You have them in the course. I think the resolution to this slide is really bad, so I have to fix this image. But in general terms, what I'm trying to say with this information is that we can address this cultural competencies as a process of knowing and learning, so we can incorporate that into the diverse working places. After Maricarmen's participation, I wish to, so we can address this short video. It's 4.5 minutes long, and it has to do with how two global leaders, one from Israel and one from China, address to each other in quite a different fashion. And what I'm really interested into this brief activity or brief exercise is that we can see these diverse aspects of how two nations or two representatives to the nations address one same issue, which is the Israel armed conflict. So thank you, Maricarmen. Okay, guys, thank you for your patience so far. As you know, as I told you before, we have today Maricarmen Rodríguez as our guest speaker. Let me stop sharing just for 1 second because I have to do Maricarmen's presentation. And I go back to the slides. Well, first of all, I know Maricarmen because we're not direct peers, but compañeros, but almost somos como primos en los programas de estudio. Maricarmen, she's currently studying the PhD and doctorado in it's innovative education, right?
Educational innovation, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the name in English I didn't know how to say.
Yeah.
And of course, you guys know that I'm studying the humanities PhD. Let me go back to the screen. Okay, so okay, it's not a requisite for you guys, but it is highly comfortable for my camera for me if you can turn your camera just for some minutes, so that so that Maricarmen can see you, so that she can get to know you at least through the screen. Okay, so who's Maricarmen? She was born in Nuevo León, right?
Yes.
Thank you. She has developed her professional career around education with diverse interpretations, but like almost all related to education. Through her personal skills and professional abilities, she has helped thousands of people to learn and develop their own skills into different regions of the world. She's going to speak with us about how she's been working so far with people from diverse countries, diverse cultures, etc. I think it's going to be really interesting. Her experience here in Mexico, she began designing and teaching language courses, coordinating programs and activities here in Mexico, which led her to open more doors into the international destination. She's going to tell us about which countries she's been into working, etc. She has taught languages both to people with favorable life circumstances but also she's been working with people with like more unfavorable circumstances due to diverse reasons. She's gonna maybe she's gonna address that into the conversation. And of course, she's been using also radio as a mean, as a channel to go into the education arena and to broaden this dissemination of information. I think that's a really good channel or medium, because I don't know if you guys use radio in a common way, but nowadays radio still is the most popular channel of massive communication. Internet, of course, it's rising, it's going huge all across the globe, but nowadays radio keeps into the first place. So in general terms, Maricarmen, she defines herself as a language and a content teacher with a huge experience in diverse international contexts. She has a strong academic background in linguistics and adult education. She's an enthusiastic seeker of social justice, a world reformer, and a potential researcher. I'm going to say that not a potential, but a natural researcher, because you are doing a lot of activities regarding that. She also knows that working in a timely manner is a crucial factor in a multicultural working environment. So welcome, Maricarmen. Right now, I'm going to handle you like the controls. You can take the session as you wish. But before I do that, I just wanted to, okay, this is a slide of what I was in general terms, what I was saying. But I wanted to share with you, because this information is about you. You know that by now. About how we address these activities. For the students, it's quite important to get like personal or like grounded experiences, like real experiences, because this course is highly theoretical. So when we listen to experts, when we listen to guest speakers, we can address different natures of how people manage themselves into the intercultural or international environments, through leadership, through participation, etc. And in general terms, this might come helpful for you, as this is the course approach, the way we address the intercultural leadership. And one of the important parts for us, for the students, is so they can learn in a first-person way. How can they develop skills for being better students, and in the future better professionals. So thank you, Maricarmen. We can see you and we can listen to you properly. Go ahead, you can share your screen, you can take the microphone. And while you speak, I'm gonna mute myself. I'm gonna leave my camera on. So welcome and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jorge. So hello, guys. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I can't see your faces, which is a pity. So as your teacher said, please, guys, if you can share just a little bit your screen, well, not your screen, sorry, your webcam, it will be pretty nice so we can see you and we don't feel like we are just talking to each other. Thank you, guys. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Ada. I see that. So I see you. Hello, hello. And yeah, the rest of you, if for whatever reason you cannot put your camera, that's fine, but it will be quite nice to see you. But yeah, as Jorge said briefly about me, my name is Maricarmen. I'm a PhD candidate in educational innovation. I'm on my first semester of PhD, so that's why I'm still, how can I say, like my face looks proper. I haven't been so stressed right now because it's just the beginning. Probably in the future is gonna be different. And yes, I'm a language teacher by bachelor's. My bachelor's is in language science with a specialization in English teaching. But I also teach French, Italian, Spanish for foreigners, and I do speak a bit of German and Estonian, because actually I have lived in Estonia, or I was living in Estonia for 4 years. I came back to Mexico last June to do my PhD. in Estonia because I was studying there, and then I got married and I stayed there and I was working there. I've been working in different countries, including this one, Estonia, the UK, in Scotland, in Malta, briefly in Finland also, and Mexico, obviously. And my master's degree was an Erasmus program. I don't know if you have heard about this Erasmus program. I hope you have, but if you haven't, it's pretty cool opportunity for you to apply for a master's and do it in different countries in Europe. And I got the blessing to have this scholarship to go there. And that's why I have the opportunity to be in different countries. And then when I finished, then I came back here to do PhD. Little bit about myself. Yeah, well, as your teacher was mentioning, I mainly teach languages, but also I'm in the adult education field. So basically, I'm pretty into how we can provide the skills to adults to get to sort of overcome poverty. I think education is one of the best tools to overcome poverty. So I'm very into that. One of my goals in the future, if everything goes well as planned, is to work for UNESCO. And I would like to work in this area of adult learning and adult education. So that's my goal. I will talk a little bit about my experience, but please feel free to ask any questions or to stop me at any time. Just feel free about that. I prepared briefly some pictures just to show you a little bit about my background. My main university during the master's was Glasgow, the University of Glasgow in Scotland. And this is a picture in the School of Education. Basically, that was the biggest accomplishment I had so far in that time. It was quite interesting to see or to be there because it was my first time studying abroad. It wasn't my first time in Europe because before that I spent a year in France teaching, working there. But this was my first year studying. So it was quite big challenge. The accent, English accent was different, was Scottish. The educational system is super different. It's very into the student. The student is pretty independent in the learning. In Mexico, it's not like this. We are very used to depend on the teacher. The teacher has to give us information. The teacher has to give us the guidance for the exam. In Europe, it's not like this, especially in the UK. You are pretty autonomous. You have a lot of autonomy in here. You have to do everything by yourself. So that was the big challenge. However, my master's program was with 18 different nationalities. So we were 18 different nationalities together. We had people from Ghana, from Pakistan, from India, from the US, of course, from Ireland, from Germany, from France, from Azerbaijan, countries that I never heard before, honestly, before doing my master's. Kazakhstan, never heard of these countries, Russia. And from that part, it was also a big challenge, because we all have different English intonations and pronunciations, but at the same time, it was very helpful. I think one of the main reasons that I survived this experience was because of my classmates during this master's. Then the fact that we all learn different things about the culture of the other person also help, of course. For example, these kind of traditions that they have with these henna tattoos when a person is getting married and in parties and things like that. It was quite interesting to explore. At the same time, the religion was also quite the elephant in the room for everybody, because we have people from Muslim countries, with Catholics, Christians, we have atheists. We have a little bit of everything living together, combining together, being together during the master. So it was a challenge, but at the same time, we learned a lot of things from that experience. Then, of course, the fact that you can also share your culture with others, either when you are studying or working, is essential, guys. You need to talk about your culture. You need to share a little bit about your culture. For example, in here, I tried to show you a picture where we were celebrating Dia de Muertos together with other people from other countries that they never experienced the year, and they took it pretty well. It was difficult for them to understand what was the main point of Dia de Muertos, but they got it pretty well, and that helps to grow tolerance, to grow empathy with everybody around you. So it's quite important for me to let you know that if you want to be accepted or if you want to have empathy, you need to share your culture, and you cannot judge everybody all the time, because you might have your own beliefs, your own thinking, your own opinion about what the other person believes in or does or practices. But we are all in the same world, and you will work with them probably or study with them. So you cannot do that. You cannot start attacking them for their beliefs. So you have to share yours for them to understand as well. When it comes to work, I was working in the UK, in Scotland, quite briefly, because then pandemic came, COVID came, and many programs in school changed. But in the UK was quite interesting. They are very nice people, pretty respectful, very nice, kind, generous. It was quite okay. It was easy, if I could say that, to work with UK people, with British people. But when it comes to Malta, still Europe, but people in Malta, and I cannot generalize, this is my experience, when it comes to business, when it comes to work, if you do not speak Maltese, it's not so easy to get a job, and it's not so easy to be accepted. Maltese people are very fond of their culture, more than anyone else I have seen. And I have been in 11 countries. I live in 6 different countries. And Malta was quite tricky on that regard. I tried pretty hard to make them understand my culture, my opinions, my point of view. But again, they are very fond of their own traditions and their language, especially because Malta is such a small country that if you do not speak the language, they are like offended, you know, like they get like, why you are here then, and you should be spreading the Maltese culture too, as we do. So it's quite tricky. About Estonia, Estonia is another case because Estonia is quite bigger than Malta. I do speak a little bit of Estonian, but it's still hard. Some people in Estonia might be, I'm not saying everybody, but they might be quite racist. So you have to be ready to deal with these situations. I share an experience quite fast. Once I was in the supermarket, I wanted to buy tomatoes. I didn't know. It was my first time in a supermarket in Estonia. I didn't know that you have to go to a special scale to put the tomatoes, and this machine gives you a number to put, you know, like the code for the cashier to read the code. I didn't know that. I thought it was like in Mexico, you just take the tomatoes and you go and pay for them. This lady started speaking in Russian because in Estonia, many people speak Russian. Most of people speak Russian as well. So she started speaking in Russian, and I was like, with my poker face, I have no idea what you're saying, I'm sorry. And then she switched to Estonian, and I was still like, I have no idea. Then she got very pissed, and she just threw away my tomatoes, and she started screaming at me, like with bad words. Why you in English, perfect English, what are you doing here if you don't speak Estonian or Russian? So that was quite shocking to face. But then I learned it was just, you know, like in public spaces, if that is the correct concept, because when it comes to work, it's totally the opposite. When it comes to work with them, with Estonian people or Finnish people, they are very nice people. They all speak English. You have lots of opportunities to find a job. But if you try to be friends with them outside the business world, it's not so easy. Or if you try to talk to them on the streets, it's not so easy. So you have to deal with the situations. And in Malta, I was doing radio, yes, as your professor mentioned. As part of my master's program in the second semester that we visited Malta, I have to direct a radio program about adult education. So we have different speakers there to share basically their experiences educating adults and what they were doing in Germany or in other countries to improve that part of the population, to decrease poverty, giving them skills to adults who work, who have different jobs, etc. Nice experience, tough, of course, but not so tough as work in other places in Malta. That was pretty difficult. So far, I don't know if you have any questions. I don't know if you want to say something, guys, or your professor.
Yeah, guys, remember that you can, if you don't wish to speak, you can type the questions or comments, anything that you want to share with Maricarmen and with all of us. You can type it in the chat, and I can share them with Maricarmen, so she can focus on the presentation, on her speech. Well, of course, I have a lot of questions. So I think if you're willing, we can go into some
Sure.
specific ones. In general terms, we know now that you've been into 11 different countries. You live into 6 different countries, which that's a lot of effort, of adaptability that you have to put into your daily activities. So far, Maricarmen, what is the greatest challenge you have overcome in these last years in order for you to adapt to these different places?
Loneliness, definitely. It was very difficult to be alone, but I said alone in quotation marks because you know what I mean. I hope you are not physically alone. Like you might have friends there, co-workers, whatever is the reason that you are there. You have people around you, but nobody's from your culture. So that feeling of being in a country that is way far from yours, nobody speaks your language, your food is not there, your family is not there, your weather is not there. That was quite tough for me. It was depressing, I have to say. The first semester of masters, well, the first year when I went away was France in 2016. It was horrible. I was crying all the time. So I learned that for masters, I will have to find friends as quickly as possible and teach them some kind of Spanish or something, or visit some kind of Mexican community to feel like home. And I did find them. So if you are going away, guys, if you are going abroad, find these Mexican communities. They really, really help. And if you are like, I will speak by the female side, I'm not feminist, but I'm a woman. So for me, it did work to find groups of women, Mexican women. They give great recommendations about doctors, gynecologists, for example, if you need it. They can help you to find one that speaks English or Spanish. Different kind of situations if you feel that insecure or unsafe because there is a guy stalking you or whatever, they help you a lot. So communities do, they help. But the biggest challenge for me was, the feeling of being alone. It was really bad. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I think Ada has a question or a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Ada.
Okay. So what it was to come to another country and don't have the food like from Mexico? How did you like overcome that challenge? Because
Oh.
I'm not out of Mexico, but it is like a huge difference between the south of Mexico from where I am and here in the north. So I like catch what you say.
Yeah, you feel that, you know, that feeling, right? Yeah, it was very difficult, as been saying. How did I overcome that? I didn't. I just tried to adapt to this kind of food that they had. I'm sorry, dear, I cannot tell you that. Oh yeah, no worries. You can create, like, you can make your own tortillas. You can try, like I was trying in Glasgow to do my own things, but they didn't have the proper flour. They didn't have the proper ingredients. You could order them from other countries, but so it was quite expensive to do that. I tried desperately to look for restaurants, Mexican restaurants. They were, of course, especially in the UK, but same thing, you cannot go to restaurants every 5 minutes. So I just did my very best to adapt my diet to this new reality. So what it helped me, honestly, is like, for example, in the case of tortillas, I have never eaten that much. So I tried to change this for, like a certain kind of bread that was not so bad for you. Or in Estonia, for example, they have black bread that I still hate, but is the closest thing for tortilla. And even my husband tries to push me. They even have in Estonia something that is called blood sausage. It's a sausage made of blood, animal's blood, and they eat this in Christmas. So when they told me, like, try, I was like, no, please don't. This is too much. And my husband was like, come on, you're from Mexico. You eat everything from the animal in Mexico. I was like, yeah, but not the blood in sausage. Like, I can't picture myself doing that. And I refuse, to do that. I didn't accept it. But my recommendation will be do your best to adapt, because remember, guys, when you go to another country, whatever country is this, or even different state, you are the guest, not the people around you. So you are the one that has to adapt, not them. You know, so the fact that, for example, I'm Catholic myself, and in Estonia, they are atheist. 98% of the population, they are atheists. My husband is atheist. So I was trying to find a church to go pray, you know, and I couldn't find it because they are atheists. I found one, but quite far. So I have to beg my husband to go there. And then I said a comment in the car, why you guys don't have a Catholic church? And my husband was like, wait a minute, Mary, you are the one that is from another country, another culture, not us. We don't have to adapt to you. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I have to do my best to do the opposite around. So sorry, dear, you're missing your food. I feel you, but I would say do your best to try to survive with this. Put a little bit of mud lemon or a pinch of salt or something to help you, because yeah, it's the only way. You change your diet. Yeah. Thank you for the question, dear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maria, I think. Maria Fernanda.
Yeah, Mafer, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Like, I went from 1 year to Canada and I made a lot of friends, but did you ever felt like tired of that you come back here again or to another city and do again new friends? Like, you have to say goodbye to the old friends and never see them again or something.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Not tired of, you know, the idea of I have to go back and I have to make new friends, but sad, of course. It is quite sad to say bye to people, especially as you said, you were in Canada, so probably you know Canadian people, but also people from other countries, and you love them and you really learn a lot about their cultures, and now you have to say bye. It was difficult to break that because they are your family from the period of time you are there. They are the only support. As I was saying before, for me, my master's classmates, all of these guys, including the professor, we were family. That's how we were in WhatsApp, family. IMASC was the abbreviation for our master's program, IMASC family. The last day of classes, I tried to put a picture, but it was too depressive to do it, so I didn't. But the last day of classes, we were all crying. It was very difficult to come back without them. But at the same time, you have to remember something, dear, that nothing is forever, like not physically, but friendship is. So if you really want to stay with them, if you really care about them, you need to find a way to contact them. Facebook, Instagram, thank God we have technology nowadays. And at least me, I'm not saying I talk to all the 24. I can't. It will be physically, physically impossible because we have different time zones. But I do try to send them a message at least once a month just to check on them. Like, hey, Buna is this girl from Thailand. So recently, like last year was an earthquake in Thailand. So I tried immediately to contact her. Like, are you okay? I just heard what happened. Just please answer when you can. So I try to be present at least once a month. Another important thing that I could recommend, but I don't know if you did it with your friends there. We all ask our birthdays, the dates, obviously. And we have a list of those. We put it in a PDF. So we sent a message that when we see, oh, today is this girl's birthday. So just like, hey, everybody in the group in WhatsApp, let's say happy birthday to this person that is. And that helps to remain contact because, parenthesis, networking is very important. So friendship is great. You can be in contact with them because you love them as who they are, right? Because they are your friends. But at the same time, networking is super important when it comes to working. So I could say I have found a lot of opportunities thanks to them, because one of them is working for UNESCO, for example, right now. So I'm already like, hey, Catherine, hi. So you remember I'm your friend. Could you help me, to spread my CV whenever you have time? We have to be honest. We have to show our candor, and we do it for friendship, but also for networking. So I would recommend try to do your best to contact them somehow, at least once a month or when they are celebrating something. Because, for example, one of my friends, this one, for example, she's Rita. She's one of my best friends in the world. She's from Pakistan, so she's Muslim. So when I know they do not celebrate Christmas as we Christians we do, she has another days. So when it's her Christmas version, I text her. But I need to remember that is this a special event for her. But it was hard. And if I can add a comment on this, and pretty quickly, Maria Fernanda, for me, I think the most difficult part of coming back to Mexico in this case was not my friends on that regard, was the feeling that I have to be, how can I say this without sounding too negative? Like in Europe, you feel pretty safe. When you are in Mexico, I have to get used again to the feeling of checking my shoulders all the time, checking my back all the time. That was super hard. It's been complicated still. That I have to, if I'm driving, I have to stop. Like there's a motorcycle coming and oh my God, they will try to, to rob me or something. And in Europe, it wasn't like this. So that feeling of in Estonia, I feel so safe as a woman. I can dress as I want and nobody will say anything. And here you have to be, So that feeling was hard. It is still difficult. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, it's a good question and a good answer. So thank you.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you. If you have any other question, guys, or Mr. Aspern.
What else, guys? I do have another question, Maricarmen. So in general terms, we spoke about differences with the climate, with the food, with the daily activities. After you have visited these 11 countries, after you finish your master's degree with 18 different nationality peers, do you think there's a common factor or a common issue when having like difficulties to communicate with each other or when conflict arises? Do you think it's a common factor or it has to be with specific things according to the different persons? How do you feel or see that thing?
Yeah, that's a great question because definitely we did have some disagreements, especially, well, I don't want to, put people in a square because they were quite common misunderstandings, but especially between people coming from Africa, for example, and European people, I witnessed a lot of misunderstandings in that regard. Because, for example, we have one class that was about how education was working worldwide, how it was used as a tool in Africa, but also in Australia, but also in Mexico. And in one of the classes, the professor did a not very good comment. He mentioned something about, I don't remember exactly the words, but he says something like, yeah, well, in Africa, as they don't have even like the infrastructure for schools, it's quite understandable that they are not so smart. He said something like this. And we did have African people in our class. You can see the pictures. You can immediately say, of course, obviously for their skin color, we could say we have two people from Africa, from Ghana, and one of them is journalist. She is a journalist, very famous in Africa, in Ghana at least. And of course, she was pretty pissed. She started saying like, how you dare to say that, and you are the professor. And I think the professor in that moment was like, oh, I just said that, I'm sorry. He started apologizing, but at the same time we were trying to control her, like, wait a minute, he didn't think of what he was saying, it can happen to everybody, da. How do we fix this? The same way as we used to fix everything as friends. We literally took a seat. We were like, breathe and let's talk about it. Because there's no point to fight over things that already happened. So we have to talk about it. I also have, personally I have a strong disagreement with this guy. His name is Milton and he's from Chile. And you might think, come on, he's Latin American. What was the problem? He, at the beginning of the Masters, was quite a macho man spirit, like, I'm a man, you are a woman, you can't do anything, I can't. And the only thing that we did to fix this was like, I stopped him once he made a comment that I didn't like at all. something like, yeah, you girls, you are here in Europe because you want to find husband or something like this. And I didn't like it. And of course, nobody liked it. And it was like, Milton, can we just stop a second? Listen, I didn't like what you said. I do not support what you said. And I think you cannot say that like, or generalizing. Of course, there are girls that do that, but you cannot generalize. And if he insisted, because he insisted, like I'm just joking, and why you get so offended? Well, you never know what kind of things you might say that other people don't like, and maybe you are just, playing around. So my recommendation is like, be quiet. First, learn where you are. Analyze people around you. Learn like, okay, these people is from this country. Oh, this culture, I don't know. So before you say anything, because you have no idea if whatever you're saying it was just a joke, for them is hurting them. So you have to be very careful. Like this girl, I put her as well because her name is Safa. She's originally from, I think it was also Pakistan, but she was living in the UK. And she ran to the UK, to Scotland, to study there because her family wanted to force her to get married back in Pakistan. You know how this culture and religion works, Muslim. And she was very scared and she ran away. I didn't know that story when I met her. So we share a class together, and I made a comment like, oh, you're so beautiful, because she is. Like, I really thought, like, you are so beautiful, Safa was her name. Like, I'm pretty sure you have a bunch of guys, chasing you. And I just made that comment, like, because I really thought that, like, a girl. And she just went super serious, and like she went down, her face was down, and I didn't know if she was crying or something. So I immediately apologized, but I was not sure why I was apologizing for. I didn't understand what I did. So I was like, I'm sorry, did I said something? I'm so sorry. And she was just wiping a little bit, and she's like, no, it's okay. Let me tell you what happened. So, even the nicest comment that you might think, I was just telling you, you're beautiful. She got pretty sad because it reminded her what is happening. So my recommendation is, be quiet, first learn people around you, know the situation, and then start getting familiar with it so you can make some comments. Because conflict will come, definitely, for whatever reason. You cannot help it. It will come, but you need to learn to do it, or to try to face it the best as you can. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And if you can see, guys, Maricarmen has a totally different perspective to our other guest speakers. So that's really important to take consideration about different life experiences, different contexts, so we can behave accordingly to those general aspects. Remember, guys, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to open the microphone, to type it in the chat. Maricarmen, I wish I don't like to be doing all the questions, but for me, I think it's going to be my last question. So I encourage you guys to participate. I think this is a more easygoing question. In general, what do people from all around the world think or perceive around Mexico? What do they think about Mexico?
Great question. Great question. I was very worried about that when I arrived to my master's. When I arrived to France, because France experience was different, I was working there. I was not studying there. I didn't have any friends. I can't say I have a friend from France. Like, even nowadays, I didn't make friends. The experience was very different. But when I arrived to France, French people, or my students, because they were high school, you will say what the, but it was a real thing, I swear. When I told them I'm from Mexico, they were like, one of them, he said, oh, Mexico? Mexico is an island in Spain, isn't it? I was like, it's an island in Spain? It's geography, guys, like basic geography. Mexico shares borders with the US. Oh, that Mexico. What do you mean that Mexico? Like, I was very surprised. I didn't even know where Mexico was, but this was, high school. It was only one student, so it was like controlled, no panic. So in France, what they thought about Mexico was what they see in the movies and in series, unfortunately. Drugs, violence, killing, desert, and tacos. So when they met me, it was like, oh, okay, Mexico. Ooh, is it really bad as we see? Like, I'm pretty sure you are pretty scared of living there, aren't you? And you know, these kind of questions, like they will look at me like, oh, poor girl, she's from Mexico. Such a pity. I feel so bad for that. They even apologizing, like, oh, Mexico. So sad. So that was my first experience, like, oh, they don't know Mexico and they don't like Mexico in Europe. In my second time there, it was 2 years, no, a year later for masters, totally different. I would say I'm from Mexico. Oh, so cool, Cancun. Everybody in Europe is like Cancun. They just know Cancun. Oh, you are from Cancun? No, I'm not. I'm from the north, pretty far from Cancun. But you know, Mexico is bigger than Cancun. Oh yeah, but Cancun, you have Cancun. So they are pretty obsessed about Cancun in Europe. Many people in Europe. And the idea they have about Mexico, yes, is about violence, but they are more aware in other countries other than my experience in France. They are more aware that Mexico has more things. They ask me a lot about Dia de Muertos, for example. They asked me about Ayotzinapa because this news got to be spread a lot in Europe. So I will be asked this question quite often. But the impression they have is that it's a pretty nice country, but I don't feel so sure to go visit. So I was being constantly bombarded with questions like, would you recommend we go? Or what places you would recommend that we don't visit? Or some tips that you can give us? When I met my husband and his family got to know that I was from Mexico, my sister-in-law first question was like, you are not taking Christian to Mexico, are you? So she was very worried about that. I was like, he has to come with me. You know, it's 50-50. So in certain moment, he has to come with me. Now that I'm doing PhD and my husband is coming in January to live in Mexico, she's going to be nuts because she's very worried about the security, you know, how I will deal with him and doing my PhD and oh my God, he's going to be alone. She's very worried about it. But again, I think movies and series have been, you know, framing this picture of Mexico. And that's it's true. We can say that, but it's not all the time. And it's not the only thing that is happening here. So I have to explain this to my in-laws. Like, he's going to be fine. It's not that I'm a drug dealer, you know, like, it's okay. And also, guys, please do not make the stupid thing that I did when I was traveling. I was pretty pissed. That's my defense. But once I was going from Glasgow to Mexico, but my stop was in Ireland, in Belfast. And I got to, you know, Fort Lock, sometimes you get to review everything, your suitcases and your bags. And I was pretty late for my next flight. It was really late. I was in a hurry. And they were doing all this with my clothes. And I just said, come on, I don't have drugs. And they just stopped everything. And they were like, oh, of course, you're from Mexico. They almost arrested me for saying that. So they took me to a different room and they were like, why did you say that? It was like, I'm sorry. When I start crying, like, I'm sorry. I was just kidding. It's too late for my flight. And they check everything and yeah, okay. But it was a horrible experience. So it's like saying bomb in a plane. Don't say, if you're from Mexico, don't say, come on, no, don't say anything about drugs in migration, okay, in the airport. Because they might take it as a joke, but they might not. So don't do that. But yeah, that's the impression they had. Violence, drugs is hot. Tacos and Cancun in general. Yeah. Cancun is just the nicest place.
Yeah. Like, I think there are the general stereotypes or misconceptions. Well, in some cases, it's a reality. In some cases, stereotypes. Yeah. And also, Maricarmen, we often think or hear, at least in this space, I think it's quite valuable what you said, because we tend to invisibilize violence or violent acts here in Mexico. And we tend to reflect on this quite often, because we cannot turn ahead to the other side, to the fact that, for example, here in Mexico, 11 women die every day due to violence, homicidal violence. For example, in Nuevo León, so far during our courses development, homicides have gone to the roof. Like, in 1 week, I don't know if you guys remember, in 1 week, we had, in just 1 day, it was like Black Tuesday, I think it was called that day. that 16 people died from homicidal violence. So yes, definitely it's something that is happening to us, but maybe because our daily activities, we tend to forget that we live in this highly insecure context when being compared, for example, to a country as Estonia, which is immensely safer than Mexico and quite different in general cultural practices, such as you mentioned, the way we dress, the way we address other people. That if we want to go outside at 2 or 3 a.m., it's super different to do that here in Mexico, even in distinct cities here in Mexico, as in comparison to foreign countries. Yes, I totally agree on that. And luckily for us, we tend to address that information, so we can have it as something present that we have to be living with. Sorry, guys. Any further questions, comments, opinions? Anything else you want to ask to Maricarmen? This is the moment. Let me go to check the chat. Okay, guys, I think if we don't have any more comments, questions, etc.,
Comment.
I think we can.
Yes, sorry,
you have a
Ada
comment,
has-
Ada?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. It's pretty amazing, all your like your presentation, your career, and I'm pretty amazed.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Thank you so much, dear. Thank you. I've been doing my very best to overcome the same thing that I have said before. You know, I will not bother you with the background that I had before, but you could imagine a standard Mexican, not a lot of opportunities. So you have to have the chip, like, why not? Like, if my classmate can do it and she's now in Europe, I can also do it. But if you allow me, Mr. Spron, to say something else, I just want to wrap up with two things, guys. Two advices or recommendations, or whatever however you want to take this. The first is, like, if you want to have these experiences of living abroad, not only visiting, because it's different to go to Asia or Europe for vacation versus going for education or work. Is the satisfaction is totally different. Yes, completely different. If you want to do that you go and study and work there, you have to, parentheses, excuse my French, you have to work your ass off. Really, you have to study really hard. You really need to have wonderful grades, because European universities totally agree with that. They do like to see that. They want good grades. They want also experience. What kind of experience? In whatever. You can even be volunteering a program and put it in your CV. They like this. So do whatever you have to do to accomplish that, but put it in your goal. Like, for example, for me, my goal was University of Glasgow, and you might ask, why this? It was a personal reason. I'm a fan of Harry Potter, and Harry Potter, some of the movies were filmed in this university. So I was like, oh, that is a castle of, oh my God. So what university is this? Like, it's Oxford, it's different universities, and one of them is Glasgow. And then I saw the program that they have for masters. And I like this program so much. And it's Erasmus. Ooh, Erasmus is so difficult to get this scholarship. And that's how my second recommendation comes. Try to get this scholarship. This program is super good. They pay everything, guys. It's highly competitive. Yes, it is. But if you put your goal, like, I want this university, I want this program, your own decisions, they will take you to that end. So for me, was Glasgow. What do they need? What do I need for that? Improve my English. Okay, then I improve my English. 1 year more of studies. You know, what else do I need? Experience, international experience. Okay, apply for France. I go there. Whatever. It doesn't have to be Europe. You can go to whatever country in Latin America to have international experience if you want that. There are programs to go for volunteers. There's a program that is called NOAA. Look it up. NOAA is to go volunteer to build houses for people. Maybe you have seen something like this. This program exists also in Asia. They go to Japan to help to build houses for, you know, people that are in precarious conditions. You can do that. That gives a lot of value for you. So overall, I want to end this opportunity that I have with you with one thing. Do not give up. There are, of course, ways for you to do what you see in these pictures right now. It can be you, of course, totally. But you need to concentrate. You want that, work for that. And it's going to be difficult, and you will hate the world, and you will hate me for saying this, and you will hate yourself for doing that, but totally worth it. When they give you this diploma, you are done. You're done. Like, that's your maximum. Yeah. So if you are interested in Erasmus program, you can totally contact me. Mr. Sprung can share, of course, my email address with you. My WhatsApp, feel free to hit me up. I can guide you for Erasmus. I have a lot of contacts in there to provide you information. So feel free, guys, if you need something about that, if you are interested. It's a great program. They pay everything, flights, maintenance, scholarship. They even give you some money per year, 3,000 euros per year for your expenses, extra from the maintenance. So with that money, I bought, for example, my mother a stove and a new a car, not a new car, but a second-hand car. So it is worth it, guys. Erasmus pay that. So try, give a try. And
Thank you,
thanks for the
Maricarmen.
invitation. Thank you.
Ada is asking, I also have the same question. How can we find information about NOAA? Is it spelled N-O-A, NOAA, or NOAA with an H?
It's N-O-A-H. Yes, as I remember. Yeah. It's also Erasmus. This is Erasmus Plus. There is a difference between Erasmus programs and Erasmus Plus. As far as I understand, Erasmus Plus is for volunteering and for, it's different kind of application. But don't worry, I can look for the information for you guys, and I can share it with your teacher and with Professor Sprung, and he can share it with you. Don't worry, I can do that because I have it in my computer. I can just look it up.
Yeah, it showed us, yes, the NOAA, Erasmus, NOAA Plus, Erasmus Mundus Journal, etc. Yeah, I can share the information with you guys via Canvas, so we can have that information in there. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, any more questions? Because Maricarmen has been online since 9 or 10 in the morning. She has to go to get some rest. She has to go to have some nice food. If you don't have any more questions, comments, we can wrap the session. Thank you, Maricarmen. Thank you so much. You've been such a good source of inspiration. That's what I insisted so much on you participating with us as a guest speaker, because I knew that we're going to deliver like the good message for our guys. Valeria, Ada, they're saying thank you. On behalf of all the group, thank you so much, Maricarmen.